Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right in today because we've got a massive paradigm shift to unpack regarding how a specific and, frankly, deeply misunderstood trait is viewed in fast-paced business environments. Now, you might be thinking sensitivity is just a vulnerability, right? Like, it's the kind of trait that totally holds people back in those cutthroat corporate cultures. But guess what? Neuroscience is telling a completely different story. We're going to explore exactly why high sensitivity might just be the absolute most underrated superpower in leadership today. Is sensitivity actually a leadership weakness? That question right there represents an outdated myth that has completely dominated boardroom culture for decades. Think about it. In these loud, overwhelming corporate environments, we see a huge, massive problem with burnout. And what's the traditional advice? Just toughen up. We've literally been conditioned to view sensitivity as a liability, like it's a vulnerability that makes you weak under pressure. But what if, and hear me out here, what if that conventional wisdom is totally backward? What if instead of being a flaw, sensitivity is actually this profound cognitive edge? Okay, let's dive into this. Just look at the data. Around 15 to 20% of the human population inherently possesses this highly sensitive trait. I mean, this isn't some rare anomaly. We are talking about a massive demographic scale. Think about your own team or your own organization. Literally 1 in 5 people is walking around with a brain that is wired to process the world completely differently. Validating the sheer scale of this demographic is really our first step in uncovering this hidden advantage that's probably sitting right inside your organization right now. Section 1, the Neuroscience of Strategy, Wiring for Deeper Processing. We're grounding this concept directly in the neuroimaging data to prove this is a physical, strategic asset. So, to really get this, we've got to define our terms. We're looking at the hard science because it is absolutely crucial to prove that this isn't just a quirky personality thing. It's a physical, biological, and highly strategic asset. Formally, this is known as sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. Dr. Elaine Aron formally identified and researched this back in the 1990s. And let's be clear, this is not social anxiety, it's not introversion, and it's definitely not just about, feeling more. It's actually a temperament trait describing a literal biological optimization for deep cognitive work. A highly sensitive person's brain is naturally built to process sensory information way more thoroughly than the rest of the population. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer neurobiology at play. It's fascinating. When we look at brain imaging studies of sensitive individuals, the activity is significantly heightened in key areas. Take the insula, for example. This area governs interoception, meaning they literally feel physical sensations and emotional nuance much more acutely. Then consider the limbic system. Its stronger activation doesn't mean they're too emotional. Actually, it gives them a much richer, more complex emotional palette. Finally, highly active mirror neurons grant them this elite capacity for empathy, letting them catch subtle social cues that most people, frankly, completely miss. They're processing a massive volume of sensory data all the time. So when you put standard brain processing side by side with this heightened sensory integration, the difference is just profound. A standard brain basically filters out a lot of background data just to keep moving forward, but a highly sensitive brain, it's working harder. It's integrating visual imagery, emotional data, and really subtle environmental shifts. It's almost like a supercomputer constantly running background apps while you work. In a business context, being able to connect those disparate dots translates directly to far better, holistic strategic decision-making. All right, moving to Section 2, the sensitive leader in action, navigating high-stakes environments. Let's see how this plays out in the real world. So what can sensitive managers actually do that others just kind of can't? Well, because their brains are constantly analyzing this massive volume of information, sensitive leaders are exceptional at deep pattern recognition. They just naturally connect disparate pieces of data and think systemically about really complex problems. And this is a massive asset. It means sensitive managers can actually foresee potential business issues and bottlenecks long before they actually happen. In fields like strategy, research, or organizational design, that capability is absolute gold. I absolutely love this quote. Rooms are often full of information most people ignore. Doesn't that perfectly illustrate their high-level emotional intelligence? Highly sensitive leaders are natural empaths who excel at building psychological safety within their teams. They instinctively understand what people really need and respond with genuine care, which, by the way, makes them exceptional negotiators and managers. They excel because they can effortlessly read the subtle subtext and unsaid tension in literally any room. Let's move to and see how this builds in a real-world high-pressure negotiation scenario. So, step 1, the sensitive leader enters the room and instantly processes subtle social cues. Maybe it's a micro-expression of doubt, a tight jaw, a tiny hesitation. Step 2, because they notice these micro details, they feel the pressure building in the room incredibly early. And then, step 3, they pivot. They tactfully address the underlying issue before anyone else even realizes the deal is in jeopardy. They don't just handle pressure, they diffuse it completely masterfully. We hear a lot about business intuition, right? Like it's some kind of mystical, magical gift. Let's completely demystify that right now. For the highly sensitive leader, intuition is absolutely not magic. It is exceptional data processing happening just below conscious awareness. It's simply the natural result of a brain that notices minute details, synthesizes a massive amount of environmental data, and delivers an elite-level strategic insight. It's basically a math equation their brain solved in the background. Section 3, Sustaining the Asset, Rituals for High Performance. Because a cognitive engine like this definitely needs maintenance. Think about it like this. Having a Formula One engine requires highly specialized maintenance. We have to address the paradox of sensitivity here. The very same trait that makes a sensitive leader capable of seeing what others miss is exactly what makes them vulnerable to overwhelm. They just have a lower stimulation threshold. But we need to bust the myth that this threshold is a flaw. Instead, we need to reframe it as a biological trade-off for those unique cognitive gifts. The issue isn't the sensitivity. The issue is that most corporate environments are built for people who aren't sensitive. So the crucial point is, to actually thrive, you've got to actively manage this trait. First off, stop fighting your nature. Work with it. Next, design your immediate environment to minimize sensory clutter. Know your stimulation limits. Remember, that's just data, not a failure. Since most corporate environments were built for, let's face it, extroverted megaphones, you must actively build recovery rituals and find a community of people who understand how you operate. Rest and environment design, those are essential maintenance strategies, not signs of weakness. Let me be entirely 100% clear about this. After intense situations, sensitive leaders must decompress, period. Decompression isn't weakness, it is absolutely necessary maintenance. By honoring your recovery rituals, you're actually ensuring that your deep processing abilities can sustainably flourish day after day, rather than just burning out in a loud, fast-paced culture. Which brings us to a deeply resonant truth from the source material. You're not weak, you're just differently strong. It's so true, isn't it? Our corporate world often celebrates volume over depth and speed over care. But sensitive leaders offer exactly what the world desperately needs right now. They notice things, they care deeply, and they make incredible meaning out of the chaos. So if you are part of that 15 to 20%, or hey, even if you just manage someone who is, you now know that sensory processing is a true biological competitive advantage. So ask yourself, how are you going to leverage the hidden data in your next high-stakes room? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep processing deeply, and I'll catch you next time.